everyone, it's Nancy at Sipping and Painting Hamden, and I'm going to show you how to paint this beautiful painting called Northern Moon. Isn't it pretty? Now you're probably wondering, why does she have that messed up canvas there? And I'm going to tell you why. I just painted a different painting and I have lots of colors left, and I decided, what the heck, I'm going to paint another painting. But I noticed that this painting would look really great on a black canvas. And I have this nasty old canvas and that I've been meaning to gesso over. That's like, kind of like white paint over. And so it's obviously from a painting that someone didn't like, and we just keep those and then we paint over them. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to pick up some black paint. I added a little bit of water to it. And I'm just going to cover my canvas and make it a black canvas, because why not? So you can either start with a black canvas, or you can take a white canvas or a canvas that has a painting you don't like and just cover it up with black paint. Not someone else's painting that you don't like, of course, only your own. But yeah, so this is what we do around here. We don't throw out anything. We just recycle these canvases. If we paint a painting we don't like, and that happens, it doesn't matter how skilled you are as a painter, sometimes you just don't like it the next day. And so sometimes you just paint over it and no one will ever know. No one will ever know you did that. You just paint over it. So we either start with, gesso is basically white paint, but it's a little thicker. It has a little like grit in it, kind of like sand or something. And the reason it has grit in it is it makes it so that the canvas isn't too smooth. It creates a medium tooth, and tooth means like how bumpy the canvas is, how much texture when you rub your hand across it. You know, when you buy cheap sheets, that they're kind of rough, they would have more tooth. But then if you find a really high thread count set of sheets, it feels like soft as a baby's behind, right? And so that's the difference. Those would have no tooth, it's called tooth because the paint sticks to the little tiny bumps, the coarseness in the canvas. So you can buy things that are very, very smooth, canvases that are very, very smooth, or canvases that have a lot of tooth. And some techniques, some artists have preferences for if they want a very smooth canvas or if they want one that has some tooth to it. And it's personal preference, as well as the kind of paints you're going to be using, whether they're oils or pastels or acrylic. So that's what tooth means. It's coarseness, a little bit of coarseness painted right in. Anyway, so that's what gesso is. It's just white paint with a little tooth in it, and like sand or something. We just use white paint. We just cover our canvases in white paint when we don't want that painting anymore. But you can also cover them in black paint like I'm doing now. And then you let that dry. And then it becomes a black canvas, and you can paint all kinds of beautiful things in a black canvas. You know what I really love to paint on a black canvas? I love to paint flowers, big, bright, bold, beautiful flowers against a black background, and it just makes them go pop, just makes them really just pop right off the canvas. It's so pretty. And sometimes you don't even notice that it's a black canvas because all you see is that big, beautiful, bright, bold flower. But black canvases are nice for painting northern lights, or as they're called up north. Well, in some spots, Aurora Borealis, I think that's the scientific name. So a dark canvas is great for that. It's also great for painting twinkly skies, lots of stars in the sky on a regular night. It's really great for painting moons. That's what we're going to be doing in a few minutes, painting a great big old moon. One thing you're going to need when we start painting is you're going to need a paper plate. About the size of a dinner plate. And it just depends on the size of the canvas. If you're using a very small canvas, then it doesn't have to be the size of the dinner plate. Maybe it'll be the size of a dessert plate or salad plate, you know, or a coffee saucer. Just depends on your canvas and how big you want your moon to be. This is a 16 by 20 canvas. It has a very, very large moon on it, and that was made with a dinner plate size. But again, these are very large canvases I'm working with. I'm also going to paint the tops and the sides of the bottom while that's drying. And if I paint all around the canvas, the tops and the sides and the bottoms, just paint the painting right around as if it doesn't stop. Just paint it right over the edge. That's called a gallery wrap. And when you have a gallery wrap, your painting just looks more finished than if it's just, you know, rough canvas. And then you don't have to buy a frame, and that'll save you a lot of money. This paint is getting quite thick. It's about an hour old now because I just completed a different painting, and I thought, oh, I hate to waste all this paint, so I'm gonna do another video. And this is a pretty little painting. It's not too hard. Not too hard, so great for beginning painters. You're gonna have to be careful when you paint that underside. You're probably gonna get paint all over your hands. I always do. Or you can just let everything dry and then paint the underside later. But I'm not afraid of paint. I have paint on my hands all the time, so I don't much care. Now this is acrylic paint, remember. Acrylic paint is very, 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 very different than oil paint. Oil paint is made from oil. It's oil soluble. And acrylic paint is made from water and a binder that's like glue and plastic. That's what the acrylic is. And then both oils and acrylic have crushed up pigment or like color powder. But the technique is very different, oils versus acrylic, very different. Okay, so you'll have to clean your brushes really well after painting with black paint, because that black paint will muddy up your water quick. And it'll stain your brushes quick too. So clean those brushes really well. I have a water jar here. I always use about, I don't know, cup or two of water in a jar. You could use a little container, whatever. Just make sure that after you use your brush for painting, you always clean it really well by just putting it in the water a lot and swishing it around a ton. If you do that, then you don't have to use a lot of napkins. I painted a whole painting and all I used was that much napkin. But if you clean your brushes really well in the water, it just dries clear. You can just test it on your napkin. That way you don't use a lot of napkins. You don't have to kill any extra trees, right? We don't want to kill any trees. So I'm still letting this dry a bit. I want to make sure that my paints are not too thick. I'm spritzing them with a little water bottle because they've been sitting out a while, so that just keeps them from drying out too quickly. I'm in Denver, and in Denver, paint dries very, very, very quickly. So I've got to let this dry a couple minutes. But while I am, I'm going to talk to you about this painting. And this painting looks like they used a fan brush to make these trees. Fan brushes are great for making pine trees. I'm going to show you how to make pine trees without a fan brush with using a flat brush. I'm going to be using a large flat, a medium flat, and a small round. And I'll tell you what these mean. Flat brush means, see how it's round here at the bottom of the metal? But as you go up, it's not round anymore, it's crimped. So this part's flat. And so a flat brush has that big surface. You can paint with that, or you can paint with this little skinny surface and make straight lines. And so that's a large flat. This is a medium flat. This is a a small round. It's good for details. And it's round because it's not crimped anywhere. It's just round all the way around on the metal ferrule. So that's all we're using. We like to just stick to a very basic color palette, basic products, so that anyone can paint. You don't have to have expensive stuff to paint. And I'm using red, blue, yellow, white, and black. That's all I'm going to use. And I think I'm going to even pour a tiny bit of water on my black just to keep it from drying out while we're painting, because I just have a little bit left. I may need to run and get some more when I do those trees. I also have my beverage. This is sipping and painting. My beverage of choice today is water. And we're going to make our moon with a plate. Let me see if my plate is the right size. Yep. All right. So if you are waiting for something to dry, here's a good way to do it. You can put it in front of a fan, or you can put it in front of a blow dryer, or you can just pick it up and wave it around the room. That works just as well. And I want to make sure that my black paint is dry, so when I put these colors on, they don't mix and become gray. So I got to make sure this black is dry. And remember, this was just that nasty old canvas. It's going to get a second life. And in about 30 minutes, it's just going to be super pretty with color. I'm excited about that. My canvas is almost dry. You can see that it's still shiny, right? So you'll know if your canvas is wet is if you move it around in the light and you can see shine on it. See the shine? In some places, there you go. You can see the shine. That's how you know it's wet. Or if you put your hand on the back of it, on the clean back, it'll feel a little bit cool to the touch. And that also means that it's still wet. A third way is you could rub it on the person next to you, and if they scream, then you know it was wet. But I would not recommend that because it might cost you a marriage or a friendship, and it's not worth it. So yeah, so use a fan, use a blow dryer, wave it around the room. In just a few minutes, it will be dry and you'll be ready to go. Look, this is almost dry. Almost dry. I'm going to go ahead and mix my paints because it's that close to being dry. All right, so I'm going to use my medium flat brush, and I'm going to add a little bit. Let's do our blue first. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of blue. I want to make a medium blue. I have the blue in the pile looks pretty dark, so I'm going to add a little bit of white, just a little bit of white, so that I get a little brighter blue. All right. And I'm going to just start putting on my colors. And they're going to go on a slant. Woohoo, isn't that pretty? I'm going to go on a slant. Ooh, that's nice. But notice I'm painting it with the sharp side of my brush. Here's the broad side. Here's the sharp side. And I want the sharp side of my brush because I want it to look like those streaks are really far away, and there's many of them. And I'm just gonna put on a whole bunch of this pretty blue, not cover the whole sky out, obviously, but I want to get a bunch of this bright, bright blue on. Same diagonal all the way across, but not measured. We don't want to have anything too measured. Don't measure. Isn't that pretty? This is fun. I love painting Northern Lights. Oh my goodness. In fact, here's a confession. That was the painting I painted earlier. And I still had paint left over, so I thought, oh, why quit now? Similar colors. Might as well just go ahead. All right, so I've got my blue streaks on there. And I don't have to go all the way down. I'm going to cover this bottom with trees. So if they don't go all the way down, no problem. It's kind of hard for me to get to the end of my canvas. So as far down as I can get works just as well. All right, now I don't need to clean this because I'm going to make it green. And green has blue and yellow in it, so I don't need to clean my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow and mix it with a little bit of blue. And what I should get is a pretty green. Now, let me just tell you, blue is a much more powerful color than yellow. And so you probably need quite a bit more yellow than blue. Blue is very powerful. Yellow is kind of a shy color. I used to say wimpy, but then someone got upset with me and said, that's not nice. So whatever, wimpy, shy, you decide. Yellow, I'll be kind. It's not wimpy, it's just introverted, okay? Anyway, yellow doesn't want to come out and play quite as quickly as that blue, but man, isn't she pretty? That's yellow plus blue make a beautiful, well, it makes green. And on this, it's making a very pretty color. So I'm just going to put in green with that sideways part of the flat brush. And pretty randomly for the most part. Don't just go quickly. There's no need to measure it. There's no need to make it perfect. Whatever you want, you definitely don't want to make it in perfect order stripes because that's not how they would be in the sky. And this is not a dress that we're doing in perfect stripes or a shirt. This is lights reflecting in the sky. So don't make it perfect, okay? Don't make it orderly, that this is exactly where those colors go. Measure it, get out your ruler. Don't do any of that. It's pretty random. All right, I'm going to clean my brush. All right, now I'm going to add a little water. Nope, sorry, not water. A little white to my yellow. I think I have enough paint on this plate to do 5 paintings like this. I added a little white, maybe 1 part white to 2 parts yellow. And I'm doing that because I want the yellow to show up brightly. And then I'm going to streak that in. Ooh, that is bright. It will not be quite so bright once it dries. And I'm just going to streak that in where I have some spots. But don't fill all your spots because we haven't done pink yet. Oh, and where it mixes, it just makes even more pretty shades. Pretty shades of green. Lovely. Like I said, it's hard to get those bottom areas, but so if they're not perfect, it doesn't matter because that's where those trees are going to grow and they'll cover up quite a bit of that. Now, if you want to paint on the sides, you can to make that gallery wrap. That's your choice, or you can leave them black. It makes no difference. But just having paint of some color along the sides makes it look more finished. All right. Oh goodness, this is bright and pretty. Okay, so I'm going to clean my brush. Now I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful with the red because red and white together make pink. And the pink will be fine over wet yellow, just fine. It'll be fine over wet blue, just fine. it doesn't mix well with green. When pink and green get together, they make brown, and that would make a drab sky. So we want to avoid that. So just to go slow with your red, I'm going to go ahead and mix a little white with some red, little white, add more red if you need it. And then I'm going to go careful with this one so I don't put it over green. I don't want brown stripes, but purple is good. If I put it over blue, I'm going to get a pretty purple. If I put it over yellow, I'm going to get orange. Nothing wrong with that. That's pretty too. But I don't want to get brown. So I'm just going to go carefully. And it's okay if it overlaps with the blue. It's okay if it overlaps with the yellow. That's all good. Just stay out of that green, okay? See how it made a little bit of orange in there? Just putting it in the black spots. Trying to stay away from the green. You ever had a party where you had to keep some friends apart because you know they're going to get in an argument about something? Kind of the same way with this pink and the green right now. You just want to be there at the party saying, how about those Broncos or whatever. Change the subject. At Sipping and Painting Hamden, we do all kinds of art classes when it's not during the middle of a pandemic like it is right now. We do watercolor classes, we do Bob Ross oil painting classes. Unfortunately, we have not been doing those during the pandemic because those are 6 hours long and it just wouldn't be right. But once the pandemic's over, we'll be back to doing Bob Ross oil painting classes. Those will be fun. I can't wait. I miss doing those. And we do, again, when it's not pandemic time, we do watercolor classes. We're going to start doing some pour painting classes here pretty soon. We can even do those online. So I like to step back about 5 feet and see what I've got. That always helps me make decisions about where I'm going to go from here. I step back about 5 feet, see what I've got. This is very bright. This is brighter than the other one, but that's okay. I'm having fun. And I hope you are too. This is a sharper angle than mine, but honestly, it makes no difference. It just doesn't matter. You can put a few little white streaks in any place you want to highlight a color. Just put a few white streaks in there. I wouldn't overdo it with the white, but definitely just blends in and makes some pretty statements all on its own. The moon is really going to pop, and we don't want to compete with the moon. So we want to be respectful. It's like a bride on her wedding day. You don't want another pretty girl wearing a white dress and competing with the bride for attention. So same thing with the moon. We're gonna take it easy, not overdo it too much so that the moon will get a lot of attention. All right, I think I'm pretty much done here. Just put a little bit more red in there. Okay. So that is gonna dry. While it's drying, I don't even have to wait. I'm going to take my moon and I'm going to think about where it is in relation to that one. That one looks like it's a couple fingers from that side. It's a little lower than halfway down. That would be halfway down. It's a little lower than halfway down, a couple fingers from that side. And I'm just going to go plop. Executive decision. Now I'm going to take my small brush and I'm just going to trace around that plate. Now, if you're using a dinner plate or, a china dinner plate from your kitchen, wait till your paint dries. Don't ruin your paint over this. Just let it dry. Give it 10 minutes, it'll dry. And then you can circle around your plate with a pencil. And that won't hurt your plate. Don't ruin a plate over one painting, okay? But this is a paper plate. That's why we have them here. So I'm going to trace around my moon. Nice. Now I want this to be dry inside because I'm going to have to paint over that and I don't want it to smear. So I do want the paint in here dry. Inside my moon. While that's drying, if there's anything you see out here that you don't like, just go ahead and tweak it. Just, fix it up now. You might as well. A little bit more blue in mine, I think. Now I have to be careful. If all of this was very wet and I kept painting color on top of color, I'd end up with just a brown sky. But some of these colors are dry, and that's why I can get away with doing what I'm doing right now. It's never going to be perfect, and that's okay. That's fine. So if you have any areas that have a little clump, you can just try to mess them up a bit, because if the paint is thin, it will dry faster. This brush was clean, but it had a little water on it. So, it was just a little damp. So, yeah, that should dry pretty quick because there's no clumps of paint anymore. About a minute of this, it'll be dry and I can paint over it. I'm going to paint the inside of this moon white, and then I'm going to put in black and white, maybe a little bit of blue craters on the inside of the painting. All right, good enough. I'm going to take my white. Now my white's kind of dirty, but I'm going to go for it. I don't care. If the moon is reflecting a little bit of those colors, that doesn't bother me at all. That'll be pretty. But make sure that it's mostly dry. Mine is, I would say, 95% dry, so I'm good to go. See that up down there, that blue? That was not dry. That's okay. I'm okay with the blue. If I get any more like that, I'm going to stop. And the blue is actually kind of perfect because the bottom half of the moon, or one side of the moon, usually has a little more shadow to it. So that's kind of perfect, really. Happy accident. A little yellow in there. I'm going to let that dry a bit. Then go in and put more over it. But here's the fun part. I'm going to let this dry a bit. Well, before I get to the fun part, I'm going to take a smaller brush. That was my big brush. I'm going to take a smaller brush. I'm going to neaten up the sides a little bit. I'm going to make it a little rounder. This is a nice full moon. It doesn't have to be perfect because even the moon has craters like mountains, right? And I think they have mountains too. Mountains or hills, I don't know. It's not a smooth surface. That's the point I'm making. And so even the moon is not a smooth surface. So don't worry if it's not perfect. The lack of perfection will make it look more realistic, and that's a great thing. So not to worry, not to worry. Now, if you're just smearing around all different colors, let it just stop, okay? Because what's happening is you're reactivating paint that wasn't really dry. So we can just stop and wait. But that's not too much color. That's not too much color, so I'm okay. But if you're getting more color than that, stop, okay? Now this is the fun part. Here's where we get to finger paint. So I put my finger, a little white, a little black. And now I can tap, tap, tap. I'm gonna make some craters on my moon. Whoa, cool, huh? Craters. This moon really needs to see a dermatologist. I've got some serious pox going on here. Craters. And notice how they're kind of random. In general, one side of your moon would make sense if one side's a little darker than the other, because depending on where the sun is at that time of the year, the sun would be illuminating one side more than the other. So I'm going to put more of this texturizing on one side and a little less on the other. Now up close, this moon looks horrible, but I happen to know that when you step away and your moon looks terrible, then it looks more realistic. I'm just letting that white and that black just mix and make craters. I'm not picking up more black, just letting it mix. There's even some blue in there. I might pick up a little bit more blue even. Put in a little bit more blue. When things are farther away, they tend to look blue. That's why mountains look blue far away. That's why oceans look blue. That's why skies look blue. Oh my goodness, this canvas is very loose. It's unusual to have a canvas this loose. It's been through a lot. It's been painted on at least twice now, maybe more. So now I might come in and swirl on some white. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Might come in and swirl on some white to cover that green area because I really don't want the yellow, but I do want the black. I do want the white. I'll let that dry a couple more minutes. Because I do want the texture, but I don't want the yellow. I'm looking at my sky as long as I'm letting that dry. I still don't see enough pink up there. I see a lot of pink in that painting. So where can I put some pink and have it show up brilliantly? Oh, there you go. And not be putting it over green. So this works out pretty well here. Just want to pink it up a bit, a little bit. Because I like how brilliant that pink is. Yeah, I think that did something. I just have to make it a little more balanced. And that's the beauty of acrylic paint. You just let it dry and then you can paint over it. I just love acrylic paint. I do paint, I do teach Bob Ross classes here. Those are oils, and those are also fun. It's just real different. Oils and acrylic are as different as night and day. Night and day. Apples and oranges. Apples and pineapples, really. Very, very, very different techniques. But what I do love about acrylic is that it's so easy to just paint over things like it never existed. It just, the paint just turns into like plastic, really. And you just paint right over it. But you have to let it dry. It doesn't like to be painted, doesn't like to be messed with when it's wet. But once it is, it's wonderful in that way. Watercolors, you try painting over watercolors, you're just gonna have a big brown mess. I'm liking that moon. I do like the moon. I'm happy with that. It's very messy. If you look up close, it's very messy, but so is that one. That one's a little more curly. This one's a little more speckled. I'm going to take a medium flat brush. Medium flat brush. Now again, as I said, you can use a fan brush for these trees. And I'm going to show you how to make them with a fan brush. But first, I'm going to show you how to make them with a flat brush. It's a more basic way, but it works. So watch carefully. I'm going to tap on, I'm going to make my tree about this high. I'm going to tap on a trunk. Notice that I'm not just pulling down straight, I'm tapping it on. And the reason I'm doing that is it's a reminder to me to not make it too straight. Pine trees are never, no tree is perfectly straight. And then I'm going to, watch this, okay, I've got paint on both sides of my flat brush, but not a scoop, just covering the bristles. I'm going to drop down about a ½ inch, see that? And then I'm going to tap. I'm going to tap across once, and then I'm going to drop down to another row. I'm going to tap across once. I'm going to drop down to another row. I'm going to tap across once. And I'm pulling this one off on the side as I go because it's so far over. And it's going to overlap the moon a bit. This one didn't. It's smaller. It's okay. No two paintings are the same. That's an inspiration. This is my interpretation, so mine's going to be different. That's how this works. So notice how I drop down and I tap across, and I'm trying to alternate. I'm alternating the sides. I'm not doing all one side at the same time. Right to left or left to right, it doesn't really matter. But then I'm going back in and filling in any areas that don't look very full over the trunk. I want the branches to have gaps in between, to have space in between, to see the colors, see the moon in between. And that's also important because you want the birds to be able to fly in and build their nests, right? You don't want any angry birds in your painting. But on the other hand, you don't want your branches so far apart that it looks like a hurricane came through and took off half your branches either. I'm going to take these branches all the way down, and I'm going to go back in. I'm going to tap over this trunk area, just in the middle, over the trunk. I don't want to be able to see the trunk. It's like if you had a Christmas tree, artificial Christmas tree, you wouldn't want to be able to see the trunk, right? You want to see the branches, the definition of the branches, but not the trunk. And notice how this comes out more, so it's triangular shape. As you go down, it comes out more. Now this needs a big sharp point at the top. That's how my eye knows it's a pine tree and not a bush. Always have a point at the top, okay? So that's my first pine tree. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna make another big one. And again, I'm gonna use my flat brush so you can see every step along the way. My trees are gonna be a little bigger, that's okay. Every painting's different. Drop down a 1/2 inch, this way you can see it better. And then I'm gonna tap, tap, tap on these rows, you see that? And this one's also going over to the side, that's okay. See the rows I'm tapping on all the way across. But then they're coming a little farther each time, a little farther, see that? A little farther each time. Now when I'm finished tapping on these rows, I'm gonna go in and add fullness in the center because this looks like a Charlie Brown tree right now. It's not full enough. So now I'm gonna come in and tap, tap, tap over the center area. I'm not tapping over those outside branches, not way over here, because that's where I want to be able to see each separate branch, and the birds have to be able to build a nest somewhere, right? I just want to hide that trunk. I don't want it to look sparse. See how I'm filling in the trunk area with more taps? Not completely filling it in. I don't want it to be a pyramid, a black pyramid, but just making it more full over the trunk area. I'm going to alternate the size of my trees. This one's a little shorter. Still same technique though. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to make a couple of them with a fan brush, just because I want you to see the difference between a fan brush and a flat brush. Now I love both. I'm happy to do these trees with a flat brush. I love fan brushes though. So if you're making your Christmas list for Santa and you don't have a fan brush, ask for a fan brush because they're awesome. Fan brushes are great for pine trees. They're great for painting hair on animals or hair on people. They're great for painting grasses. You will have a ton of fun with a fan brush, I guarantee it. All right. So those are pine trees or evergreens with a flat brush. You know, let's do one over the moon so you can really see it, okay? There's my trunk. Notice the point at the top. Notice how I'm tapping, tap, 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 little clusters, little clusters. I'm not making every line perfect. I don't want that. I don't want perfection. Perfection wouldn't look good. Notice how I'm not tilting my brush like this because I don't want it to actually look like a Z. If it starts to look like a Z, go in and break it up over the trunk. You don't want any Z's. I'm holding my brush pretty flat. It's just tapping with the tip of it. See, with that tip. And then tap over any place where you see the trunk. Okay, now I can go in and make smaller ones and shorter ones. And of course, I don't want to put any more tall ones in the middle because I really want the emphasis to be on the moon. It's really about this moon. The painting is called Northern Moon. So I want the moon to be the star of the show. So I'm going to make trees alternating small like these. And these two big ones more or less just frame it. Let me go ahead and show you a fan brush and how different a fan brush is and how similar it is too. So here's my fan brush. Look, it looks like a fan. I'm going to take my plate and I'm going to groom the fan brush. It's like I'm brushing the plate with it, and see how much paint I have on my fan brush. And I'm going to come down. Let's see, I'm going to do this one a little shorter than that one. Same motion, pop, pop. But look at how much easier it is with a fan brush. Woohoo! Look at that. Super easy. You don't need to tap as much with a fan brush. It does have a different look. So maybe these are different kinds of pine trees. We don't know. But I'm still going to do the same thing. I'm going to still tap in a little fullness over the trunk. Now that's a very fine fan brush. This one is made with synthetic bristles and they're very fine. So that's why you get these fine branches. You can get them. We also have some in the studio that are made out of some kind of animal hair. And they're just thicker. So then they look more like these. But every, you just get a different kind of pine tree depending on the kind of branch you use, or brush you use rather. See that? See how I'm tapping? It's the same technique with the flat brush and the fan brush. It's just that the fan brush already has that shape, so you don't have to do as much tapping. They're a little easier. I think I'm going to put one more little tree right there and then call it a day. Notice the point. Every one of my trees has a point. If you don't have a point on your pine tree, they will not look like pine trees, because pine trees have that little point at the top where the trunk is just starting to grow little branches. All right, there you have it. I think I'm done. I've got trees. I've got a moon. I've got a starry sky. Now, if you wanted just for kicks, this would be the last thing you could do if you really wanted. Actually, there's a couple of things you could do. Let's have some fun, and then we'll sign off, okay? Here's a couple of things you could do. You don't have to do both of these, but you can do one of these or none. So one thing you could do is you could put a falling star. And here is it's an asteroid. I don't know the difference between an asteroid and a comet and all those. There's about 5 different names. I don't know, but whatever. Falling star. Here we go. A circle and then flick. Cool, huh? Want to know another thing you could do if you wanted? And again, this isn't part of this painting normally, but these are just some options to make it your own. You could put in some little stars with the stick part of your brush, just the stick. And that, Northern Lights do have stars in them, and it just adds to the magic. It might be a little too much. You might not like it, but you can do that. You can also let it dry and put glitter on your canvas. This one actually has a little glitter brushed on it. After it dried, someone put glitter on it. So you see how I'm just using, it's just a little bit of paint on the stick of my brush, and I'm just painting in little stars. Twinkle, twinkle, little stars. That's kind of fun. So that's another option. So many options, so many options. And I'm going to give you one more option. All of these things in one painting might be a little much, but you decide. Painting should be fun. And what you create is less important than how much fun you have doing it, in my opinion. Unless you're making it as a gift and you really want it to be perfect. But I don't go for perfect, I go for fun. All right, so here's the last thing I want to show you. One more option that's just kind of fun. You can make super easy birds. And this is how you do it. You take your finest, tiniest brush, and then you chisel that black paint. Just chisel it. Spin your brush back and forth on the side of the plate. Just chisel it so you get a nice sharp point. And then you come in front of your moon, because that's going to be a bright place. My moon's still a little wet there. It's dry here. So I'm going to just touch down the middle, pull out and up, and then flick down. Touch up, pull down, and flick. Kind of looks like a bat, but that's okay. And you can give him a little more body if you need to. There you go. Now he's a seagull. See that? Or it might be. And every bird needs a friend, right? So, click, click. There you go, 2 birds. Probably better to put one at an angle, but that's okay. Maybe they're at different angles. Anyway, every bird needs a friend. Every tree needs a friend. Every friend needs a friend. All right, so we got 2 birds. We've got a shooting star. We've got stars. We've got trees. We've got a moon. We've got northern lights. Only thing it doesn't have is glitter. All right, I hope you had fun painting with me. I had a good time. And I hope you'll paint again with me soon. And please, if you haven't already, please go down below this video and click like and then subscribe so you can see some more painting videos for free. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good night. Ciao and cheers.